You're watching the weekend edition of Color 8 Local News at 5.
Well, a very good evening. I'm Brianna Monty. Thank you so much for joining us. It's going to be another hot one today, so if you're going to the second day of Montana Fair, be sure you stay hydrated. And speaking of Montana Fair, our meteorologist Melissa Scavelli is currently there with more on our forecast. Hey Melissa, is it pretty toasty out there?
Hey Brianna, it is extremely hot out here. Earlier today, we had the National Weather Service post that we got up to 101 degrees today, and that's not it. We're not done getting up there yet. We have an excessive heat warning in place throughout the rest of the day today, and we also have fire weather warnings that people need to be on the watch out for. I measured the concrete and the asphalt with this heat gun here, and it said that it was almost 130 degrees, so it is extremely hot. The heat is continuing to radiate, but just because it's that hot, this serves as a reminder to make sure if you're walking your dogs, you're walking them only in the grass and not on the asphalt. You don't want to burn their poor little paws. We'll talk a little bit more about the heat coming up in just a moment. I'll go ahead and send it back to you.
Well, thank you so much, Melissa. That is a great reminder. Today, August 11th, is 811 Day, where the National 811.org organization reminds folks of the need to call 811 before digging for a home or commercial projects. Color 8's David Kaplan dug deep for this story and stopped at the 811.org booth at Montana Fair today to see how people are learning to dig safely.
Around 95% of all cut lines are from people who did not call 811 before they started digging, risking potential harm, according to 811.org. Some of that potential harm could be deadly.
If you hit a gas line, obviously you're going to have the risk of explosion that's coming from that. If you get into an electric line, you have the risk of actually getting electrocuted and killing or injuring yourself. And those are all things, of course, obviously you don't want to happen. So if you know where the location of that underground line is, you can avoid digging around it, being safe while you dig around.
Clint Calfell, Montana representative for 811.org, says it's common in Montana for people to dig before calling 811 and finding themselves in trouble.
In Montana, we have accidents all the time. Somebody that digs into a line and causes damage. We have in Billings, Montana Dakota Utility reports that they have a lot of hits from the small gas lines going into homes very often.
He says it's not just lines for utility companies you need to be aware of, it's also private lines. At the 811.org booth today, fairgoers are getting info about digging, and kids can get capes so they can be super diggers. 811.org wants to remind everyone safe digging is no accident. In Billings, David Kaplan, Montana, right now.
Tony O'Donnell with 811.org says if more people called 811 and were informed before digging, there would be less power outages, less delays in construction projects, and possibly smaller electric bills. The Montana Fair doesn't only bring friends and families together, but it also gives food vendors a chance to showcase what they bring to the table. Color 8's Luke Laster tells us more about Montana Fair treats.
And we use all fresh meat. We make our marinades from scratch.
Some go for the rides, while others may go for the games. But it's the food that's a crowd favorite at Montana Fair. From cheese on a stick to kettle corn to funnel cakes, you can find it all here. Montana Fair is also a great opportunity for new vendors to help get their name out there. One of these includes Santana's Home of the Bubba. Here at Santana's, the Bubba Sandwich, only 4 weeks old and new to Billings.
And the Bubba is basically a sloppy Joe. My mom fed us when we were kids, and we played off it in different directions. The blue cheese, bacon, red onion.
After you get a Bubba sandwich, you can head over to Big Papa Concessions to get yourself an old-fashioned root beer float. And if you're not a fan of root beer, don't worry, because they have options.
On us, we do either a float or a soda, and we do it in a plastic cup or a souvenir cup. So we have 4 different sizes you can choose from and 5 different flavors. And you can do a float out of any flavor that you like. Orange cream, vanilla cream, black cherry, sarsaparilla, and root beer.
So no matter what the reason is that you're attending this year, be sure to check out some of the diverse food options Montana Fair has to offer. For Color 8 News, I'm Luke Laster.
Well, if you think you found a delicious meal, please let us know. Go to our Color 8 Facebook page and send us a message so we can check it out. Well, the Billings Fire Department kicks off their annual Fill the Boot fundraising campaign to help kids and adults with muscular dystrophy, ALS, and related muscle debilitating diseases live longer and grow stronger. Dozens of dedicated firefighters hit the streets with boots in hand, asking pedestrians, motorists, and other passers-by to make a donation to MDA. They began at 11 this morning at Hilltop and Main Street in the Heights. Color 8 spoke with Executive Board member Cameron Abel for Billings Firefighters, who is participating in the Fill the Boot campaign. He explains more.
We love to see people and their smiles when they come through, because they get excited because they know they're helping out. It's nice to be able to see people. They'll dig in their change jar and they give what they can, and we love that. We'll take any amount that anybody's willing to give.
You still have time to support the Billings Fire Department and their efforts. The firefighters will be out in the Heights until 5:30 p.m. So you have about 30 minutes. And if you missed this one, the next Fill the Boot event will be on September 25th at 24th and Central Avenue in Billings, starting at 9 a.m. The Garden Creek fire remains at 10% contained, with 2,052 acres burned. Confederated Salish and Kootenai Division of Fire says the lightning-caused fire is being managed by a local Type 3 incident management team. The main focus of the management team today will be to secure the north perimeter. A burnout operation will be conducted to achieve this objective. Hand crews and equipment will assist. Helicopters will also be used to cool hot spots along control lines. A dry, cold front will pass through the western Montana today, producing critical fire weather conditions due to strong and shifting winds. A red flag warning is in effect until midnight tonight. A reminder for you, Yellowstone County is under a Stage 1 burn ban. Under Stage 1, campfires are prohibited except within developed recreation sites, fire rings, or improved sites. Smoking is limited to enclosed vehicles or buildings, developed recreation sites, or in areas at least 3 feet in diameter and clear of flammable materials. Anyone who causes a wildland fire intentionally or through negligence will be held accountable for damage and suppression costs. In national news, a stunning verdict in a case against a biochemical giant Monsanto, ordered to pay hundreds of millions of dollars to a man who got terminal cancer after using the company's weed killer for years. NBC's Steve Patterson has more.
This morning, fallout from a monumental verdict.
This case was historic.
Friday, a jury in San Francisco found biochemical giant Monsanto liable for former school groundskeeper Dwayne Johnson's cancer. Johnson says constant use of the household product Roundup led to his diagnosis of terminal non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. Doctors have given him just months to live. The jury awarding $289 million in damages.
If you know you're going to die, you might as well not die in vain. You might as well say to yourself, well, let's put this out here. What happened to me?
Johnson's lawsuit is the first of hundreds against Monsanto, alleging it knew the weed killer's link to cancer and failed to notify the public. In 2015, the World Health Organization classified the chemical glyphosate, an active ingredient in Roundup, as, quote, probably carcinogenic to humans.
A unanimous jury here in San Francisco has told Monsanto enough. You did something wrong and now you have to pay.
Attorneys for Monsanto insist their product is safe and they plan to appeal.
The verdict today does not change the science.
But for thousands of plaintiffs, many suffering with cancer, the verdict is a beacon of hope.
And that's global, so that's bigger than me, way bigger than me. So I hope that that light will be shined.
For today, Steve Patterson, NBC News.
Coming up, an incredible story of a father going to great lengths to find his son-in-law in Oregon. You're watching Color 8 News Montana right now. A Coeur d'Alene father will do anything to get his son-in-law a kidney, even going as far as to plaster his cell phone number on the side of his truck to help. But that's just the beginning. Adam Mayer has the incredible story.
If I have to have it tattooed on the back of my head, or on the bottom of my shoes.
A father's willingness to help.
And if that gets him a kidney, I'll do it.
Knows no bounds. David Soret started small with t-shirts that say, "Son needs kidney," and his cell phone number on it. The kidney is actually for his son-in-law, Craig Kinchelow, whose replacement kidney failed. and is waiting for a new one. He got the inspiration after visiting Disney World.
His t-shirt said, "I need a kidney." And I thought, what an awesome, awesome idea.
He took it one step further, plastering the message on the driver's side and passenger doors and the bumper of his truck. Swartz says to go through these great lengths has opened up his eyes.
In Pennsylvania.
David's gotten hundreds of phone calls and texts from across the U.S.
This one is from North Carolina. Knows exactly what we're going through.
It started with this Facebook post. Cassandra Cave spotted the truck in Hayden and posted this on Facebook, and it has been shared thousands of times. While it's a bit overwhelming, Swartz says the support his family has received is incredible.
It actually brings tears to my eyes that so many folks out there are so caring. There's a lot of good people out there, and doing this has inspired me to be able to pass it on to others.
Coming up, meteorologist Melissa Scavelli will have your full weather forecast when we come back. Don't go away.
Thank you so much for sticking with us. We greatly appreciate it. We are out here at Montana Fair, at least I am, where it is extremely hot. The temperature right now, according to the National Weather Service, is 101 degrees. This is the first time we've broken over 100 since 2012, and trust me, you can definitely feel it. If you do come out to Montana Fair or have any other events to go to for the rest of the day, you're going to want to make sure you have plenty of water and your sunglasses as well. The sun is extremely bright, and we are having issues with the heat, so you just want to make sure you're taking care of yourself and giving yourself frequent breaks, anything else you need to do, because this heat is going to continue throughout the rest of the night, and we're going to see things cooling down a little bit later in the week, so I'll go ahead and let you take a look at the rest of the forecast. We have an excessive heat warning in place. I'm sure you've noticed it if you've been outside. That's going to be for all of those counties that are in the pink color, so that does include Billings, Hardin, Miles City, Jordan, Glasgow, anything like that, and that's where you're going to see those triple digits. This should end by midnight tonight. The same thing goes for the heat advisory. So just to our west, where we're seeing those counties in the orange color, including Wheatland and Golden Valley County, also goes down all the way into Livingston and Columbus. You're looking at that heat advisory going to end by tonight. We're looking at those temperatures getting into the triple digits, possibly mainly going to stick with those 90s. We're also looking at fire weather issues. So everybody is having a fire weather warning. You need to make sure that you're double checking that. We're expecting some strong winds to come through and the potential for some dry thunderstorms. So remember, if you see something, say something. You need to make sure that you're reporting that. The fire weather warning goes all the way through Sunday night at midnight. So going into the start of your work week. So just keep that in mind. If you do want to do any campfires, make sure you double check your county's burn bans before you do that. The smoke that we've been seeing all day has calmed down quite a bit. We are still going to see some hazy skies out there, but mainly that cold front's going to come on through and push all of that smoke out of the way for us. Overnight, we're dropping those temperatures down into those 60s and into those 50s, so not too shabby out there with those skies nice and clear out there for us, still a little bit hazy. As we get into tomorrow, we're looking at those temperatures back up into those triple digits for some of us, especially out towards the eastern plains. We're going to stick with 99 degrees here in Billings, 82 degrees down in Yellowstone National Park. So here's that cold front that we were talking about going to swing through Saturday night. By Sunday at 7 a.m., passing right through Bighorn County. We're going to see some of those winds pick up just a little bit, trying to bring some moisture behind that. We're really not going to see too much of that moisture passing through. Like I said, going to be more of those dry thunderstorms, so some gusty winds, frequent lightning with these storms. So if the lightning hits any of the dry ground, you need to make sure that you're reporting that so we can get that taken care of as quickly as possible. Going into your Monday, things are going to cool down a little bit. We have some cool air right behind that, so no more triple digits for us. We're going to see those temperatures down into those 80s, back up into the 90s though for you on Wednesday. We have two chances to get maybe a little bit of rain working its way in here, so Sunday night and also on Thursday night.
Live from the Fireplace Center Sports Studio, SWX on Color 8 starts right now.
What's up, guys? Today's the final day for the Little League Northwest Regional. The boys from Boulder Arrowhead, the final unbeaten team standing, only needing a win over Idaho, a team who they already beat to clinch a spot in Williamsport in the World Series. Montana beat Idaho Thursday 5-2, but this one a single elimination shipper. Top three, no score in this one, and well, wild pitch here. Paired scoring position, easy run there. Idaho takes the lead 1-0. Top of the fifth we go, same score. Christopher Reynolds slaps one straight up the middle. The pitcher knocks it down, but the throw to first goes wide. Idaho scores on the air to make it 2-0. We head to the bottom of the sixth. Now Montana down to its final out. Jacob Wilcox slaps one to short, but they can't get the play at second. Tying run now sitting at first base. Very next batter, it's Caleb Anderson. He's going to find the gap in left center. That'll load the bases with the tying run now at second base. That'll bring up Cade Batstall. He sees a pitch he likes, but unfortunately it's popped up into shallow left. Ball game, folks, as the comeback falls short. Idaho is heading to Williamsport for the first time since 1989 with the 2-0 win. As for the American Legion Northwest Regionals, the Royals game got moved from 4 to 7 to switch up opponents, but they will face Idaho tonight for a chance to stay alive in tomorrow's championship round. We'll have highlights tonight at 10. High school football kicking off across the state this week. Yesterday, we brought you a preview from our Class AA schools. Today, take a look into Class A as the Central Rams look to move on after do-it-all running back and linebacker Ben Voss graduated, and well, he's with Montana Tech. SWX Montana's Lori Buring has more on the Rams' outlook heading into the 2018 season.
Head coach Jim Stanton says the Rams have had a pretty good summer and are returning most of their starters. However, they still have a lot of work to do, especially when it comes to replacing Ben Voss.
Nice player, definitely a challenge to replace him, and it might be, you know, we have some young running backs. A lot of nice things about, you know, sometimes you got a lot of nice kids sitting waiting. You know, a lot of these kids have paid their dues, so we hopefully that give an opportunity to somebody to come up and shine.
It's going to be like weird because he's a good playmaker on defense and he makes a lot of plays on offense, so not having that threat is going to be a big loss, but it's next man up every time.
Without a whole lot of experience comes the need for competition for playing time.
We have a strong group that is inexperienced in terms of a lot of time. They did get some time, so there's a good competition there. We're, you know, somewhat deep on the line, so there's some competition there as well. And you know, our perimeter guys, there's a lot of bodies to get on the field.
Central lost in the semifinal game last season, so this year they're looking to get that bad taste out of their mouth. In Billings, Lori Buring, SWX, Montana.
Thank you so much, Lori. Rams opening up their season in 13 more days when they play host to Miles City. Finally, the Montana State Bobcats have announced their 2018-2019 team captains. And for the first time in Jeff Choate's coaching era, he let the team vote for who they wanted to be represented by. All he asked was that making the decision, well, the team picked the hardest working, most accountable, and committed players on the roster. The team took those words into consideration and decided that defensive lineman Zach Wright, offensive lineman Alex Neal, and wide receiver Kevin Cassis would be the best representation as this year's captains.
I want to love the guys with everything I got. You know, there's a golden rule in leadership: just never ask someone to do something that you're not willing to do yourself. So it's something that I live by, and just try to set a good example for all the other guys.
I've done a good job kind of asserting myself as a leader throughout the summer, and I think guys looked up to me in that way. But I mean, it wasn't like I was like, oh yeah, I'm going to be a captain, but it was like, okay, I think I have an idea I could be, but you know, still it was still a cool deal.
Only for being here, 3 years, and people kind of having that respect for you, knowing that I do care about them. I just think that's really cool. Just a huge honor. I guess I can't stress that enough.
19 more days until the Cats open up their season on Gold Rush night when they play host to Western Illinois. Well, that is your look at sports, folks. Tune in tonight at 10 for highlights from the Pioneer League as the Mustangs look for their 3,000th win in franchise history. We'll see you after the break.
Well, here's a quick check of our weather for you. We're still seeing extremely high temperatures. Our high so far today, 101 degrees. but I can promise you things are going to cool down just a touch as we go for tomorrow, and then as we start your work week as well, we'll start to see things cool down before we finally see those temperatures get back up into the 90s. Just remember, it's also fire season out there. We have fire weather warnings in place, so just be careful before you go out there and decide you're going to burn anything, have any campfires. We want to make sure that everybody here stays safe. That's enough for me. I'll go ahead and send it back inside to the studio.
Yeah, we definitely want to be careful with the heat outside, because if you're not hydrated, you could, it could be a health risk for you. So
it's not a bad place to be, though. She's right next to the spinning ride, and it's got to get some wind blowing on her.
Yeah, definitely
not. Not a bad place to be. Only 2 people on that ride, though.
Was there?
Counting it while she was talking.
I didn't see anybody. Well, anyway, check this out. A Wisconsin cat was able to unite strangers. Oh, actually, we are actually out of time. We'll go ahead and see you tonight at 10. Thanks.
You're watching the weekend edition of Color 8 Local News at 5.
It's a significant drain on resources, but I will say everybody has responded magnificently, and I wouldn't expect anything less. But they are getting tired, and they are getting worn out.
It was a violent night for Billings police officers. 2 shootings, 1 was officer involved. I'm Brianna Monti in for Amy Leet. We'll begin with the investigation that has 5 officers on paid leave tonight. Mary Jane Bellieza joins us live from the Billings Police Department. And Mary Jane, this ordeal actually started late Friday night.
Good evening, Brianna. That's right. The initial call in this came just after 11 o'clock p.m. last night. 2 hours later, 1 person is dead, 5 officers are on administrative leave, and several vehicles were badly damaged.
Saturday's fatal shooting started with a common call. There was a domestic disturbance on the 100 block of Prickett Lane. After leaving the scene, officers began to pursue. The suspect led officers down several main roads before officers backed off. They believed they knew who the suspect was and where he was going.
The officer turned on his lights and attempted to stop the suspect. The suspect failed to comply with the officer's orders. He backed up and sped away.
Eventually, officers spotted the suspect a second time. This time, he led them down Shiloh and onto Monad, the suspect driving on the wrong side of the road.
Officers learned who the suspect was, what he was driving, that he may have been headed to a residence on Bunting, that he was intoxicated and possibly armed with a knife.
Finally, officers found the suspect in his vehicle slumped over the wheel on Bunting Street. The officers attempted to block the vehicle in. They attempted to speak with the suspect and even deployed pepper spray. There was no effect.
The suspect continued his refusal to comply and unexpectedly and rapidly accelerated backward, striking a patrol car.
Eventually, officers had no choice. They had to defend themselves.
Officers had to jump out of the way and scatter to avoid getting hit by the truck and the cars that were being rammed.
It was quite a scene for neighbors to wake up to. We caught up with Keith Peterson, who had just arrived home from work early this morning.
Initial reaction was I came home and looked out the windows and I saw police cars and everything everywhere. I was wondering what was going on. To see and have the problems that the bigger cities are having.
Now, Chief Rich St. John says they have identified the suspect in this case. He is a 24-year-old Native American male with a prior criminal history. However, police say they aren't going to release the name until they properly notify the family. Live in Billings, Mary Jane Bellieza, Montana, right now.
Thank you so much, Mary Jane. This morning's shooting further strains the resources of the Billings Police Department, which has several open cases investigating police-involved shootings. Over the last 6 months, 19 Billings police officers have been placed on administrative leave following a shooting. 4 officers were placed on leave following a shooting on May 12th on Highway 3 near the Rims. Police were responding to a domestic disturbance and ended up in a standoff with a man in a vehicle. Officers approached the vehicle and found the man had a handgun and took cover behind their patrol cars. Negotiators spent an hour trying to talk to the man into giving up his weapon before he opened fire, forcing officers to return fire. On October 18th, 2 officers were placed on administrative leave after being forced to shoot a man outside the Lazy KT Motel. Police stated that suspect was armed with a shotgun and pointed it at them. On November 4th, 8 officers were placed on administrative leave following a prolonged standoff with an armed gunman inside Big Bear Sports Center. The suspect in that case repeatedly fired at officers from inside the store after crashing a vehicle through the front doors while the business was closed. Now 5 more officers are on paid leave pending the outcome of the investigation into the fatal shooting on Bunting Street Saturday morning. Following the Big Bear shooting, Police Chief St. John did say that he expects officers from earlier shooting investigations to return soon. Now, the Billings Police Department can use every resource they can get. In addition to the officer-involved shooting overnight, police were also called to Bones Arcade on the 1400 block of Broadwater Avenue. One man was shot in the stomach around 1:18 this morning after an altercation with another individual. The suspect left the scene on foot before police arrived. Well, the victim was transported to a local hospital where his condition is stable. The suspect is described only as a tall African-American male with an average build. Meanwhile, officers are continuing to investigate a body found in tall grass earlier this week on South 32nd Street. It took officers nearly a full day to remove the body from the area. Police Chief St. John told the media today that this case has been complicated due to the fact that the body was exposed to both the elements and animals. Police have not identified the body but say the body is an adult male. And we've got a big week coming up. Thanksgiving is already on Thursday, so many of us are using this weekend to get our errands done. So let's ask meteorologist Melissa Scavelli if we can expect some nice weather for the rest of the weekend. Melissa?
Well, Brianna, we can expect some nice weather. We had nice weather today, and we have nice weather tomorrow as well with these warmer temperatures. Pretty much we have a mild week all across the entire week. We do take a dip in temperatures on Tuesday, but we do have those temperatures staying in the 50s for Sunday, and Monday. But we do have some breezy conditions. I'll have more on the winds that we can expect throughout the next couple of days in my full forecast coming up in just a little bit. I'll go ahead and send it back to you, Brianna.
Well, thank you so much, Melissa. Well, it's finally the big day, Brawl of the Wild, and that's why we have SWX's Jake Jones with us here today to give us a little Brawl of the Wild preview. Jake?
Well, it was a big day over in Bozeman. Noon kickoff. Cats looking for and getting their second straight win in the Brawl, the first time they've won in Bozeman since 2005. But for much more on today's game, we'll go ahead and send it down to Bozeman. SWX Montana's Sean Rainey is standing by.
Yeah, Jake, in an empty Bobcat Stadium right now, but a couple hours ago, this place was absolutely rocking. As you mentioned it, first win here at home since 2005 against the Grizz, as the Continental Divide Trophy will be staying here in Bozeman. And this place afterwards, the players, they grabbed the trophy and they were parading around, and the students, they rushed the court or the field, and you could see actually here the field goal posts were taken down. So yeah, it was quite the atmosphere here as Chris Murray, really the star do-it-all player. He rushed for 133 yards, and the Cats rushed for 322 yards as a team. And of course, last year against the Grizz, they rushed for over 350 yards. So they've been doing it all year long. That's been in their DNA has been running the football, and they got the big win, 31-23. Coming up later, Jake, you'll be having all the highlights, and we'll also hear from both players and coaches from both teams about the big Brawl of the Wild meeting. But for now, that's going to do it. I'm live in Bobcat Stadium. Sean Rainey, send it back to you, Jake.
Coming up, in 1985, New Coke was released, and it didn't sit well with many people who enjoy a cold, soft drink. Now, Coca-Cola is giving a tweaked recipe another try. We'll tell you how the flavor will be changed and where you can find it when Color 8 First News at 5 continues. Stay with us. Well, thank you so much, Melissa. In Montana right now, the Medicine Man fire near Molt that started Thursday night continues to burn, burning more than 450 acres of land. Interim DES Coordinator Kent O'Donnell says thankfully again the weather was conducive overnight for fire suppression. He says there was some fire activity last night. Most was in prior burned areas. He also says Saturday afternoon crews made good progress establishing solid fire lines. Additional hand crews have been added to the effort yesterday, with manpower being about 90 firefighters rotating in and out. Active fire and fire activity will be visible on the southern side near the intersection of Lip Road and Buffalo Trail. O'Donnell says no evacuations have been issued and none are expected. The fire is estimated to be 70% contained. Well, Yellowstone County Commissioners will be proposing a Stage 1 burn ban as soon as Monday. This is according to Chairman of the Board for Yellowstone County Commissioners. A Stage 1 burn ban prohibits outdoor burning. No visible smoke is allowed from any wood stove or fireplace, certified or not. Chairman Osland says last year's dry spring and summer led to a Stage 2 burn ban, but this year's Stage 1 ban is coming out a lot later than normal. This is due to the rain and moisture Yellowstone County has been seeing. He says Kent O'Donnell, Interim Disaster and Emergency Services Coordinator, Lieutenant for the Yellowstone County Sheriff's Office, worked with all the area's rural fire chiefs to pick a time for implementing a burn ban. This helps with fire protection.
If you're going to burn off a stubble field or something, the process would be they'd get a burn permit, then they would call the fire chief in their area and put them on notice, and then they got to have suppression equipment around there.
Osland and the other two board members will vote on the act with a 2-3 majority required. In national news, the Mendocino complex continues to grow, becoming the 7th largest wildfire in California's history. Crews were encouraged Saturday as strong winds pushed the fire away from population areas and into forest land in areas that have already burned. Thousands of people remain evacuated, but some are slowing, returning to the town of Lakeport. Even as people come home, not everything is back to normal. Some businesses have reopened for the first time since the evacuations. Others remain closed. Saturday, the White House approved California's request for a presidential major disaster declaration in the wake of the historic wildfires. Governor Jerry Brown says the request was submitted to the president and approved in the same day. Color 8's David Kaplan shows us how a local Montana fire department is lending a hand to the people of California.
These Columbus firefighters are just a few representing Montana at the record-breaking Mendocino complex fire in Northern California.
Our engine, as well as an engine from Livingston, 2 from Missoula, and 1 from Butte, all went out there.
He says Columbus sent an engine to a similar assignment to the California fires back in December.
It's kind of a give and take. I mean, nobody's got the resources. They need to do it completely by themselves. So when you've got fires that are impacting major communities, you've got to help out. That's all there is to it. When we get stretched thin, they'll do the same thing for us.
Despite losing staff to other fires, Fire Chief Cowger says the Columbus Fire District is prepared for potential fires in their own backyard.
We always try to maintain the level of staffing that we'd normally have year-round. We try to maintain that summertime, wintertime, everything else, but we do bump up our staffing levels in the summertime to help us out.
He says when a fire is burning like that, you do what you have to do to help each other out. Battalion Chief Cowger says as of now, the Columbus firefighters expect to come back home in mid-August. Back to you.
Thank you so much, David. Battalion Chief Cowger says the Columbus Rural Fire District has also helped crews battle fires this summer in Colorado and Idaho. A federal judge is calling the Trump administration's efforts to reunify migrant children separated from their parents unacceptable. This comes as the president's zero-tolerance policy faces new scrutiny. NBC's Maya Rodriguez reports on one family's struggle.
A bittersweet goodbye at Orlando's International Airport. 39-year-old Alejandra Juarez leaving behind her family as she is deported back to Mexico on Friday.
My mom is a good person and she's not a criminal.
She first entered the country illegally 20 years ago and had 2 daughters here after marrying a Marine who served 3 tours of duty in Iraq.
You always said in the news that you love veterans, that you love our military, that you're doing everything for the military. My husband is a veteran. He fought for this country 3 times.
The case is just one facet of the Trump administration's zero-tolerance immigration policy, which began in April. Among those affected, children separated from their parents at the border. Of the more than 2,500 separated, 572 are still awaiting reunification with their parents. Now a federal judge is demanding accountability. Judge Dana Sabra yesterday blasting the administration for not having a plan on how to reunify the children in their custody, calling it unacceptable, adding, quote, "The reality is that for every parent who is not located, there will be a permanently orphaned child." The administration defended the process this week.
Certainly the president himself has stated that he doesn't like the idea of family separation. I don't think anybody does. We also don't like the idea of open borders.
Back in Florida, a different kind of separation for the Juarezes, as a mother heads back to a country where she no longer has family, leaving behind part of the family she created here. Maya Rodriguez, NBC News.
Coming up, do genetics have an effect on how long you're going to live? Find out when we come back. A very good evening. I'm Brianna Monte. Thank you so much for joining us. The Missoula County Sheriff's Office says 32-year-old Francis Crowley is facing criminal charges after a 5-month-old baby left in his care was found buried alive in the mountains near Lolo Hot Springs. Last night, the Sheriff's Office responded to a 911 call that a man was threatening people and saying he had a gun while reaching his hands in his pockets. Authorities learned the child left in his care had not been seen for several hours, and when Crowley was questioned, he indicated the baby was buried somewhere in the woods. After a 6-hour search on foot, a deputy heard a faint cry and discovered the infant buried in a wet and soiled onesie under a pile of sticks and debris. The baby had survived at least 9 hours in the woods alone, but is now listed in good condition at the hospital. Crowley is currently being held on charges of criminal endangerment, with more charges to follow. And now we go to a crime tracker alert out of Park County, where the sheriff's office says a woman who believed demons were chasing her led them on a chase up and down Highway 89 on Saturday. At around 11 o'clock in the morning, a distraught woman called 911 saying people were following and trying to kill her as she was driving on Highway 89 South. She also said demons were chasing her. When a deputy found her, the woman told 911 she wouldn't stop for law enforcement and had knives and spray she would use if they tried to contact her. She then began to drive onto oncoming traffic. Law enforcement was trying to stop the woman from traveling any further when she attempted to ram one of their vehicles. Eventually, she stopped in the middle of the highway and got out of her vehicle with a large hunting knife and began to threaten law enforcement. The standoff lasted 20 minutes before she was tasered and taken into custody. While June saw a good bit of rain, July may be a different story. Color 8's Lori Beering catches up with Billings Fire Battalion Chief Matt Hopple on how they're preparing for the hot season and their relationship with the Montana Department of Natural Resources and Conservation.
In 2017, the Montana DNRC reported 277 fires in Yellowstone County. While grass is getting dry across the state, the Billings Fire Department is lucky to have a good relationship with the DNRC.
They have access to a lot of information on current conditions. So on a daily basis, we're given those conditions. So we monitor the conditions that are within our county here. In our response area. Beginning of each day, we'll get a briefing on what that is and what we should be prepared for based on, wildfire is a lot of, everything's based on weather and fuels, what you have in the area for that day. So we keep a close watch on that.
Acres burned last year in Yellowstone County sits at 4,982. Every year, the battalion chief says firefighters go through a wildfire refresher.
To get our mindset in the right area, so usually in May or June, we go through and do all that review just to be back on our toes and get our gear out and be prepared for something like that to happen.
Every year, emergency personnel and officials try to predict how bad wildfire season will be.
They're predicting in June that it'd be above average. Well, we had a cool, wet spring, so that kind of changed that. but that can be short-lived.
To help keep things wet, one would think we need rain. According to Battalion Chief Hopple, it depends on the kind of storms.
You're getting lightning within that rain, that type of storm, the type of storm that you get with that, because you have all that rain falling, but you get some lightning strikes that can have a huge effect on. If stuff's dry already and rain comes down versus, things already being wet and green, it's when the things start to change, color starts to change, things start to dry out, where that rain really doesn't have a lot of effect.
While weather conditions change from dry to wet and back to dry, a lot of vegetation pops up and dries out. Chief Hopple says the community can really help keep wildfires from happening.
With that vegetation, especially the people that live in what we call the wildland urban interface areas, the homes that are built within the trees, stuff like that, there's a lot of stuff you can do, a lot of resources online that they can go and see how they clear that vegetation from around their houses. Vegetation close to houses is what burns houses down. So as long as they're clearing their houses for that, 15-foot buffer, 30-foot buffer, depending on what where their house is built. It could be on a slope, not on a slope. What kind of fuels you have on the ground. Just simply clearing dead pine needles from around the foundations, anything that can burn.
Chief Hopple says people can throw water on vegetation, but it will never clear the vegetation. Also, pine needles can get inside rain gutters. Hopple says to make sure homeowners keep things like that clean as well. In Billings, Lori Beering, Montana, Right Now.
The battalion chief also says homeowners can help fires from spreading to their homes by keeping everything wet around their houses. Well, the Magic City saw a bit of rain today with thunder and lightning rolling through. Meteorologist Melissa Scavelli can tell us a little bit more about it. Hey, Melissa.
Hey, Brianna. Well, that's right. We did have some rain move through. It was very quick, but we had a couple lines of storms trying to pass through, and we did get some thunder and lightning with this as well. The storms did come through and they did bring us a little bit of rain, and along with that thunder and that lightning, there was even some pea-sized hail that made its way through in Laurel. We are now also watching this storm as it continues to go through Rosebud County into Powder River County, where it can have winds excess of 40 miles an hour and hail of about a $half size, so you need to or half an inch, excuse me, so you need to make sure that you're on the lookout for that and just be prepared in case you do see any hail. And of course, if you have pictures of the storm or any hail that does fall, any damage, feel free to send them in to us. We would love to see your pictures. Let us know your location and at what time you took that picture. And remember to always be in a safe location when you take those pictures. We'll talk a little bit more about the heat that is coming up this week in just a little bit. I'll go ahead and send things back to you.
Well, thank you, Melissa. City Council will have their regular meeting tomorrow. The last item on the agenda will be a vote to change the start times for City Council meetings. According to the City Council agenda, a council initiative by Councilmember Clark was approved to present an ordinance amendment to change the start time from 6:30 p.m. to 5:30 p.m. City Council will have a public hearing on this item tomorrow, so anyone wishing to chime in on the matter is welcome to. If the item is voted in favor of the time change, the effective date will begin 30 days after the final approval. The City Council meeting tomorrow will start at the normal time of 6:30 p.m. Well, we have continuing coverage on the Thai rescue. A successful rescue operation today brought 4 young soccer players to safety from a flooded cave in Thailand. But 8 of their teammates and a coach remain stuck deep inside a mountain. NBC's Bill Neely reports from Thailand on the dangers rescuers faced and the challenges still ahead.
For one small boy, the end of a nightmare. It's a moment many feared would never come. They had battled through this, swirling water, narrow passageways, a route that's already proved a death trap. Commanders chose the strongest boys first. They told divers they were ready. This is D-Day, said the commander. We have to act now. The rescue began at 10 local time this morning. 10 divers reaching the cave and attaching 2 boys, each one to 2 divers. Less than 8 hours after it started, the boys emerged. 2 hours later, a second pair. 4 were free. One diver told NBC News the boys were totally calm. But it was a rescue made urgent by falling oxygen levels in the caves and falling rain outside. The rescue, he said, was a masterpiece of planning. 8 boys and their coach remain trapped, their lives still hanging in the balance. This isn't over, but the boys' long journey home has begun. Well, the rescue operation has started well, but it's now dawn on day 2 and the divers are getting ready to do it all again. One diver has told NBC News the greatest danger is complacency. 9 lives are still to be saved. Bill Neely, NBC News, Northern Thailand.
Secretary of State Mike Pompeo today responded to accusations from North Korea that Washington had made gangster-like demands to pressure the country into abandoning its nuclear weapons. Now, Pompeo responded to the comments during a joint briefing with the Japanese and South Korean foreign ministers.
How can you continue to say that you believe they are negotiating in good faith?
Because they were, and they did. Pretty simple. So, look, people are going to make stray comments after meetings. If I paid attention to what the press said, I'd go nuts, and I refuse to do that. I am determined to achieve the commitment that President Trump made, and I am counting on Chairman Kim to be determined to follow through on the commitment that he made. And so if those requests were gangster like they are, the world is a gangster, because there was a unanimous decision at the UN Security Council about what needs to be achieved. So the world will see continued enforcement actions by the United States in the days and weeks ahead, and I'm counting on those other countries that are with me here today and others around the world to continue to enforce these sanctions as well. The enforcement of those sanctions will continue until denuclearization is complete.
The North's statement came just after hours after Pompeo wrapped up 2 days of talks with senior North Korean officials and was sure to fuel growing skepticism in the U.S. over how serious Kim Jong-un is about giving up his nuclear arsenal. Well, coming up, breathing in dust can be hazardous to your health. Find out what complications you can get by just inhaling dirt when we come back.